Hello and welcome to Garden of Luma, where I provide you with tips for growing edibles in hot climates. Hello everybody, Joe here with Garden of Luma. In today's video, I'm going to take you guys on a quick backyard tour. It is January 25th, 2020, here in the Phoenix, Arizona area. I'm in growing zone 9B. We are kind of mid-late winter right now, so we've had some chilly nights here and there, but for the most part, I'd say it's been more of a typical winter for us here. Upper 30s for lows, 40s, things like that, but we have hit frost on occasion a couple times. So I want to show you guys what everything's looking like. Winter isn't really the best looking time of the year, but I would like to show you guys everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. This year it's actually looking a lot better than last year's winter video. If you guys have any questions about anything I'm growing, any of these fruit trees, you want to know a little bit more, drop me a comment down below and I'll answer any of your questions. Check out some of my older videos. I do more in depth on specific varieties of trees that I'm growing, so check those out as well. Or subscribe to stay updated on the latest videos. Most of the fruit trees that I planted were in 2016 when we moved into this current house. I have a few things here and there that I've planted more recently, but for the most part, a lot of the in-ground fruit trees were planted in winter of 2016. Okay, so let's start with some of my container plants here. And I've started to bring some of these guys out. They've been under the patio, most of these, for a little while now, to help fend off any cold or frost that likes to settle. And so this is my canistil. I have a couple more of these in the ground. These have been grown from seed. And I started these seeds back in 2018, so they are going into their second year. And as you can see, this is doing really well, really green. This one I've been able to take indoors on the cold nights when we've got down to freezing. And so it stayed really healthy. And this has been more of a vigorous grower than the ones in the ground, I think, because of the soil. You know, we have that clay soil, that high pH soil. So in a container, we don't have to deal with that quite as much. So it grows a little more vigorous. Next to it is my wax jambu. This is my youngest fruit tree right now. I was gifted this plant from a viewer back in the end of summer of last year, 2019, around August, so it's fairly young. Looking pretty good right now, and again, this is small enough to where it's really easy to bring inside when I need to. And so that's what I've done. Okay, so here is my Soursop. And it has suffered a bit, as you can see. Probably the worst that it's looked since I've had it. This was grown from seed. I want to say maybe 2017 is when I started this from seed. I believe it's about 3 years old. Last year it was about half the size of this, so it was much easier to move indoors when I needed to. And it's just gotten so large that it's a hassle now for me to bring this indoors. But I did, you know, on those really cold nights, bring this in the garage. But for the most part, it's been under the patio. And as you can see, it doesn't like the cold and it suffers from it. It will start leafing out as we warm up, and I'm sure it'll be fine. It hasn't completely defoliated or anything like that, but it is pretty beat up. And I do need to figure out a way to prune this to keep it manageable in a container. It's just too cold here for this to go in the ground. So I have to keep it a manageable size in the container to move it in the garage on those really cold nights. These Anonas just kind of fan out their growth habit, so it's really hard to figure out like where and how to prune these things. So I'm gonna have to figure that out soon before it starts really flushing out its new growth. Okay, so this is my Keri Mango. If you guys watched the recent video I posted talking about these mangoes here, the 3-gallon mangoes, This is a prime example of how it's all just weeping down to the ground here. Every single branch is long and lanky and just weeps like this. I just chopped the top off today. It had probably about here with just some scraggly branches, and half of it had died back from a frost a couple years ago. So I'm not sure what to do with this thing. I've been debating different ways I could prune this back, but haven't quite figured out what I want to do yet. So for now, I just took the top off there, and I'm hoping it'll start sending some new shoots up top there that'll grow more upright. And then these ones that are already hanging, I'll just let them flower and fruit if that's what they want to do this year. All right, here's my sugar apple tree, and this has done really well. Usually around this time of the year, it's defoliated quite a bit, but it still has a lot of leaves on it. It's still pretty green. And these are semi-deciduous here when it gets cold. There's a broken limb there I need to clip off, but it's kind of got a hunch here. It's growing. The winds have just kind of thrashed this, and it's hard to stake in the pot. Okay, back in here is my Silas Wood Sapodilla. Looks really, really good. Next to is my Jamaican cherry that got a little bit beat up from the cold. All right, here's my Mayor lemon. And this has been just sitting out in the middle of my yard. As you can see, a lot of yellowing from the cold. It hasn't really been that happy. It is flowering, getting ready to flower quite a bit. So that's a good sign. 2 years ago, this was loaded with fruit. Last year, I had like nothing. So it seems to cycle. Here is one of my AdamOya seedlings. This was started from seed in 2016. It's gotten quite large here. It's done really well. Again, I'm surprised how green these Anonas still are here. It did take some damage to some of the leaves, but I don't see any limbs really that got damaged from cold. My Caracara navel orange here, just kind of scraggly looking. Back behind it is my early Grande peach tree, which I just pruned back as it's starting to bud out, and my Sprite Delight cherry plum. Not too exciting looking right now. They're just kind of bare as they're dormant. Well, let me see if I can show you some of the buds. There you go. So this guy here is getting ready to flower already in late January. So they flower really early. Peach season here for these are in May. Here is my white sapote. And this has been an extremely slow grower. I think because of the spot I planted it, gets too much shade here. But now with a lot of these trees that have lost leaves and everything around it, it gets more sun and it's happy and it grows a little better now. As you can see, it's putting out new growth. Also has flower buds on it. This was planted in winter of 2016. So it is a little over 3 years old, going into its 4th year, and still quite small. Blackberries going crazy everywhere here. These are the Rosboro variety. Here is my red hybrid Jaboticaba. My misty blueberries here. These are also getting ready to bud out here. You can see some of the buds there. This is my Barbie pink guava. I did not move this guy at all either. And it does have some darker leaves on it from the cold, but overall it seems fine. was a little more exposed here to the elements, to the cold back here. My Indonesian seedless guava. And these guavas really indicate how cold it gets for me in my yard. These are relatively pretty green this year. And they're definitely one of the ones that show frost damage pretty quickly, unlike some of the tropicals. So I know when it gets cold in my yard, it's really show the frost damage right away. You can see at the top some dark leaves, but they aren't even like crispy. Like, they're just that dark color that the guavas get when it gets colder. So this is looking really nice compared to last year. My Loquat, Bradenton Loquat, just loaded with bloom, smelling amazing. Bees all over it right now. I believe some of these have already set. But yeah, this is just loaded with bloom right now. So I'm hoping for a pretty good crop. Here's my Tikal Sapodilla. And again, I mean, it got a little beat up. It tends to cycle leaves anyways going into growth flush in the spring. Still has the fruit on it, the one fruit. So I'm hopeful that will develop as it warms up. One of my can is still seedlings, and this is pretty beat up. As you can see, it's kind of blocked from sun here, so I don't even think it's really getting sun at all. So as you can see, it's kind of suffered because of that, but it's still alive. So we'll see what happens with this. Okay, my Parfianca pomegranate, I just trimmed back a bit. Again, not much with these deciduous, they're just kind of branchy right now. Here's my Sherwood jujube that I'm getting ready to prune back a bit. My figs back here in the containers, Black Mission, Peter's Honey, and Violet Day Bordeaux. My mulberry, my dwarf mulberry, I'm going to prune back. I'm starting to see signs of life on this too, starting to wake up. Here is my Peruvian white guava, and again, last year, probably most of this that's in the camera right now was hit by frost to where I had to prune it back. This year it's totally green. Here's my other African Pride AdamOya, the one I'm growing in a container here. And you can see, I mean, this is more typical of what I see with my AdamOyas in the winter time. You know, the leaves get beat up like this, kind of crispy, yellowing, start dropping. They pretty much lose most of their leaves right before spring as they're pushing out new leaves. So this is common when it gets cold in our area. Okay, my Barbados Cherry here in the container. I've left this out here too, and this one has suffered a bit from the cold. It has lost some leaves on the ends. You can see it's a little bare looking over there. The winds have thrashed it, so it's all over. I've been thinking about maybe putting this in the ground right here. I'm not sure yet. I've been debating that. The reason why I did not move this or protect this on the cold nights at all was when I tried to move the container there, it was rooted into the ground through the bottom of the container. And I didn't want to sever a bunch of roots and stuff to move it, so I just left it here. And so if I do decide to plant it in the ground and move it, I'll prune it back when the roots are severed a bit. But I just didn't want to do that in the cold and then try to prune and everything and just cause more issues with it. So I just left it. It's still alive. It'll be fine. Here's my Maranta Mango. And this one was grown from seed in 2016, so going into its 4th year. All my mangoes aren't really doing too much. I'm starting to see little buds at the ends, so I think they're getting ready to push out some growth and stuff, but it seems like they're a little later this year than normal. My kit mango back here. Some of the leaves are a little beat up, but nothing too major, considering I didn't have any frost protection on these at all. You can see the structure's partially up, but I just never got around to just finishing the job. And then my Keri Mango here. And lastly, this is my other canistel seedling that I have in the ground. This one's grown a little bit bigger than the other one that I showed you. Gets a little bit more sun, but still not probably enough right now. And there you have it. Check me out at gardenofluma.com for more tips on gardening and growing fruit trees, especially in hot, dry climates. If you have any questions about any of the plants that I'm growing or the fruit trees that you've seen today, drop me a comment and I will respond as soon as I can. Thanks for watching.